I think it's important to highlight that Saudi Arabia has historically been a firm defender of Palestine. In 1973, in protest at US support for Israel, King Faisal embarked on a wide-ranging oil embargo that plunged the world into an economic crisis. In 1979, King Khalid stunned Washington and Cairo when he joined an Arab-wide political and economic boycott of Egypt after Anwar al-Sadat had signed a peace treaty with Israel. And in the 1990s, King Fahd and his powerful crown prince Abdullah leveraged their relationship with the US to pressure Washington into reining in the Israelis and easing up on the Palestinians. And it is when we consider these positions that Saudi Arabia has taken in the past that the statements of Prince Turki al-Faisal and Saudi Foreign Minister Faisal bin Farhan begin to pose more questions than answers. Because while Turki al-Faisal condemned Israel as a Western colonizing power, he did not condemn UAE normalization of ties with Israel. While Faisal bin Farhan, the Saudi Foreign Minister, stated that Saudi would not normalize ties until the rights of the Palestinians were respected and affirmed, he did not in the same breath criticize UAE normalization of ties with Israel. There has been no move from Riyadh to boycott the UAE or kick the UAE out of the Arab League, or even to join an Arab-wide declaration condemning the UAE normalization of ties with Israel. And it is this lack of alignment between the statements coming out of Saudi Arabia and the actual action or lack of action being taken that poses more questions than answers. Moreover, it's important to remember that Saudi Arabia played a role in facilitating normalization of ties by allowing its airspace to be used by Israeli officials and continuing to allow its airspace to be used for flights going from Israel to the UAE and UAE to Israel. These questions are compounded following the G20 summit when King Salman was caught on camera asking his son if he had attended the G20 summit from the year before, confirming suggestions that King Salman's memory is failing and that he is not necessarily fully up to date with the decisions that are being taken in the kingdom and the trajectory that the kingdom is headed, and also lending credence to suggestions that Bin Salman is taking decisions and implementing policy without consulting his father and independently of his father. And it is this that Israel will note, in that while King Salman may be firmly against the prospect of normalization, Bin Salman has given enough signs of being amenable to the prospect, and that therefore he should be backed, protected and supported in his bid to become king.